We tend to think of the ground beneath the United States as solid. We build our highways, our suburbs, and our monuments on it, assuming it will stay put. But sometimes, right here on American soil, we make a mistake so catastrophic that the ground essentially decides to eat us alive. Imagine you are fishing on a quiet lake in Louisiana, only to watch the water suddenly turn into a violent, spinning vortex that sucks down an entire oil rig, 11 barges, and 65 acres of forest in a matter of hours. Imagine walking through a small town in Pennsylvania where smoke rises from cracks in the highway. The basements are filled with poison gas, and the ground is so hot it melts the soles of your boots. A fire that has been burning beneath the streets for 60 years. Imagine standing below a massive federal dam in Idaho, watching in horror as the solid earth wall begins to weep, then crumble, then dissolve, sending an 80 billion gallon tsunami tearing through the American heartland. These are not scenes from a movie. These are real events that happened in US zip codes. This is the geological mega defect. The moment American engineering picked a fight with American geology and lost. Today we are exposing the 3 times the Earth swallowed America whole. 1. The impossible whirlpool of Lake Peigneur. 2. The burning ghost town of Centralia. And 3. The dissolving wall of the Teton Dam. Your digital security has vulnerabilities that can buckle under the pressure of cyber attacks. You need a defense that is verified, tested, and proven to withstand the crushing weight of modern digital threats. That's why I use NordVPN. NordVPN acts as a titanium pressure hull for your data. It encrypts your connection, keeping your personal information safe from hackers and surveillance. It doesn't rely on unproven innovations. It relies on industry-standard, military-grade encryption. Plus, it lets you access the global internet without borders. Secure your digital life today. Go to the link given in description and use code MEGADEFECT for up to 73% off, plus 3 extra months. Let's look into the abyss. Our first disaster happened in the bayous of Louisiana, and it answers a terrifying question. How does a lake drain like a bathtub? The location is Lake Peigneur, near New Iberia. On November 20th, 1980, this was a shallow, 11-foot deep freshwater lake, popular for catfish fishing and surrounded by botanical gardens. But it was sitting on top of a geological time bomb. Beneath the lake, the Diamond Crystal Salt Company operated a massive salt mine, a labyrinth of tunnels 1,500 feet underground. And on the surface, a Texaco oil rig was drilling for oil. It was a crowded geology with 2 major industries separated by layers of rock. The Texaco crew had a map. They calculated their drill coordinates using triangulation, but they made a fatal error. They used the wrong reference system. They thought they were drilling into the oil reserve, but they were actually positioned directly over the mine. They were off by just 14 inches on the map, but that translated to 400 feet on the ground. At 7:30 a.m., the drill bit seized up at 1,200 feet deep. The rig began to tilt. The crew abandoned ship just moments before the massive 150-foot-tall derrick overturned and vanished beneath the water. They thought the rig had just fallen over in the mud. They were wrong. They had drilled a 14-inch hole directly into the roof of the salt mine below. The water from the lake began to pour into the mine. Salt dissolves in water. As the fresh water rushed in, it dissolved the salt pillars supporting the mine's roof, widening that tiny 14-inch hole into a gaping crater. The intake turned into a violent vortex. The terrifying visual was the whirlpool. The suction was so immense that it reversed the flow of the Del Cambre Canal, which normally flowed out of the lake towards the Gulf of Mexico. For the first time in history, a 50-foot waterfall formed, flowing backwards into the lake crater. This backwards flowing river brought the ocean with it. Salt water from the Gulf poured into the empty lake bed. The whirlpool sucked in 11 massive steel barges that were waiting in the canal. They spun around like toys before being dragged vertically into the abyss of the mine. But the horror wasn't just suction, it was compression. As 3.5 billion gallons of water flooded the mine, the air inside was trapped and compressed. It had to escape. Massive geysers of air and water exploded out of the mine shafts, shooting 400 feet into the air like cannons. In the end, the entire lake, 65 acres of land, a house, the botanical gardens, and the oil rig was gone. The mine was destroyed, and Lake Penieur, once fresh water, was now a deep, saltwater lake. The Earth had punished a calculation error by permanently altering the geography of Louisiana to Centralia, Pennsylvania. In the hills of Pennsylvania lies a ghost town that served as the real-life inspiration for the horror movie Silent Hill. This is Centralia. In 1962, Centralia was a bustling coal mining town with over 1,000 residents. Today, the population is near zero. The town doesn't exist on some maps anymore. The U.S. Postal Service revoked its zip code in 2002. Why? Because the town is burning from the inside out. The disaster began with a mundane task, taking out the trash. The town council wanted to clean up an illegal landfill located in the pit of an abandoned strip mine. They hired volunteer firefighters to burn the trash. They lit the fire, let it burn, and then doused it with water. Anthracite is incredibly energy dense and burns hot. The fire didn't go out. It followed the coal seam underground, spreading like a virus into the labyrinth of old mine tunnels that ran beneath the entire town. People complained of headaches and nausea, symptoms of carbon monoxide poisoning. The fire was consuming the oxygen underground and pushing deadly gas up into people's basements. Then the ground started to heat up. In winter, snow wouldn't stick to the ground in Centralia. Steam began to rise from cracks in the highway, smelling of sulfur. The owners of a gas station lowered a thermometer into their underground fuel tank to check the temperature of the gasoline. It read 172 degrees Fahrenheit. The gasoline was nearly boiling in the tank. But the moment that truly shocked America happened on Valentine's Day, 1981. A 12-year-old boy named Todd Domboski was playing in his grandmother's backyard. Suddenly, the ground opened up beneath his feet. He fell into a sinkhole 4 feet wide and 150 feet deep. He managed to grab a tree root on the way down, screaming for help. When they checked the hole, the steam coming out of it contained lethal levels of carbon monoxide. If he had fallen all the way down, or if he had stayed in the fumes for a minute longer, he would have died. The government spent $42 million trying to put the fire out. They drilled boreholes to flush it with wet sand. They tried to dig it out. Nothing worked. The fire was too deep and too hot. Finally, they admitted defeat. They condemned the town. They paid residents to leave and bulldoze 500 homes. Today, Centralia is a grid of empty streets overgrown with weeds. Smoke still curls up from the ground. The fire is still burning and is predicted to burn for another 250 years. 3. The Teton Dam, Idaho. Finally, we arrive in Idaho for the most catastrophic structural failure in U.S. history. This wasn't a mistake by a local town council or a private company. This was the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation, the federal agency that built the Hoover Dam. They were the best dam builders in the world. In the 1970s, they decided to build a massive earthen dam on the Teton River to provide irrigation and flood control. The dam was huge, 305 feet high and 3,000 feet wide, creating a reservoir 17 miles long. But the site they chose was a geological nightmare. The canyon walls were made of rhyolite, a volcanic rock that was intensely fractured. It was riddled with cracks and fissures. Building a dam there was like trying to hold water in a cracked bowl. Geologists warned them. They said the rock was too permeable, but the engineers believed they could fix nature. They drilled deep holes into the rock and pumped in a grout curtain. Millions of gallons of liquid concrete injected under high pressure to seal the cracks. They believed they had glued the canyon shut. They were wrong. On June 5, 1976, just as the reservoir was being filled for the first time, the dam began to weep. At 7:30 a.m., workers noticed a small leak near the right abutment. Muddy water was seeping out. This meant the water was eating the core of the dam, a process called piping. They tried to plug it with bulldozers, pushing rocks into the hole. But the hole grew faster than they could fill it. At 11 a.m., a terrifying whirlpool appeared in the reservoir, just feet from the dam wall. The water was being sucked into the earth inside the dam. The structure was being hollowed out. Then, at 11:57 a.m., the dam simply disintegrated. A massive section of the wall collapsed. A wall of water, 2 million cubic feet per second, exploded into the valley. This was a flow rate nearly 50 times greater than Niagara Falls. The city of Rexburg, Idaho, was directly in the path. The floodwaters hit the town with the force of a tsunami. Houses were lifted off their foundations and floated away whole. Logs, cars, and cattle were churned into a debris pile miles wide. The flood killed 11 people and 13,000 cattle. It caused $2 billion in damage in 1976 dollars. The dam was never rebuilt. Today, the ruins still stand in the canyon. Found the cracks in the volcanic rock and dissolved the dam from the inside out. The engineers had tried to seal the earth, but the earth refused to be sealed. These three American disasters, Lake Peigneur, Centralia, and the Teton Dam, prove that the ground beneath our feet is not a passive stage for our ambitions. It is an active, dynamic, and sometimes violent participant. We drilled into the salt, and the lake vanished. We burned the trash, and the town burned with it. We tried to grout the cracks, and the dam dissolved. In every case, we assumed American engineering could conquer American geology, and in every case, the geology won. It serves as a warning. We might own the land on the surface, but we definitely do not control what lies beneath. Which of these three stories hits closest to home for you? The sinkhole, the fire, or the flood? Let us know in the comments below. And if this tour of America's engineering nightmares kept you on the edge of your seat, hit that like button, share this video, and make sure to subscribe to Defect. We are mapping the flaws of the modern world, one disaster at a time.